Hello everyone. The question says a vector has an x component of negative 24 units and a y component of 37.2 units. Find the magnitude and direction of this vector. So another question involving components of a vector, right? Write down the given information. Suppose the vector itself is A. You can call the vector anything. I just want to call it A. The x component happens to be negative 24 and the y component happens to be 37.2 units, right? What does all of this mean? You have a horizontal component which is negative 24 units. Then you have a vertical component which is 37 units. You can always shift your vectors around. I'm just going to shift my vertical vector here and I'm going to just eliminate right there. We have a sub y, we have a sub x. How do we find now the actual magnitude of the vector? You are completing yourself a triangle, right? Good. So the vector A makes up the hypotenuse of this right triangle. A sub x squared plus a sub y squared. Some of you asked me, are these always going to be at a 90 degree? Yes, these two are orthogonal. They are at 90 degrees. Why? One component is horizontal, the other component is completely vertical. And the angle between them are always 90. So you can always resort to the Pythagorean theorem. 24 squared plus 37.2 squared, taking the square root is going to give you 44.3. Yes, we are consistent with the answer. How do you find the angle, everybody? How do you find the angle? So this is the angle you are looking at. We're always going from the positive x-axis, going counterclockwise. Following me? Good. Arctangent of the vertical component divided by the horizontal component. This is always the equation. You take a sub y divided by a sub x. What's the answer? Negative 57.17. I told you your calculators are not smart enough. The angle that's given to you is negative 57.17. If the answer was 57.17, this is the vector you would be looking at, but the answer is negative 57, so you have to go below the x-axis. This is how the calculator works. So this is here is your angle, negative 57.17. But your vector is not in the fourth quadrant. Your vector is in the second quadrant. How do you go from the fourth quadrant to the second quadrant? You must shift, you must rotate the vector by 180 degrees. So what do you do? Negative 57.17 plus 180, that's going to give you 123 point whatever degrees. Now, if you want to know why your calculator makes this mistake, just continue watching. We have the equation arctangent of a sub y divided by a sub x, arctangent of 37.2 divided by negative 24.0. Notice where your negative value is. Your negative value is in the x direction. The y direction, the y component is positive. However, the horizontal component is negative. Everyone sketch. Your horizontal component is negative. However, the vertical component is positive. You are inside the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, the negative could be attached to the denominator or it could be attached to the numerator. There is only one negative sign. The negative could be either attached to the denominator or it could be attached to the numerator. Inside the parentheses. Either way, the answer is going to be negative. Again, you're either attaching the negative to the numerator or the denominator. The calculator attaches the negative to the numerator. What does that mean? Now, instead of pointing in the positive y direction, the vertical is shooting downward. The vertical component is shooting downward. What happened to the 24? It turned into positive. So it took you to the fourth quadrant. But you are not in the fourth quadrant, you just have to rotate it by 180 degrees. Okay? Good. Just pay attention to where the actual vector is and just pay attention to what the number in the calculator is given to you. And then you would have to sometimes modify that angle. When does this issue happen? This issue happens whenever you have a negative sign, because the negative could be taken from the denominator and it could be attached to the numerator instead. Because inside the parentheses, right, you can work the way you want. And the calculator seems to be attaching the negative to the numerator rather than the denominator.